Jinx's story is very tragic. It's filled with trauma, mental deterioration, loss, and severe psychosis. Her story demonstrates the power of what unresolved trauma can do to any person. How you deal with your trauma fundamentally shapes your future, and Jinx's story perfectly encapsulates this idea. Her journey from the innocent Powder to the erratic Jinx illustrates the devastating effects of past wounds left unaddressed. But to understand why Jinx's trauma affected her so drastically, we have to examine her story and who she was before she donned the name Jinx. When we first meet Powder, she's just an innocent little girl being guided through the harsh world she lives in by her sister, Vi. Both of their parents were killed by enforcers during a war between Zaun and Piltover. We see by the way Vi reacts that she understands that her parents are gone. But Powder, being roughly 5 or 6 in this situation, doesn't fully understand the events that just took place. So instead of breaking down like her sister, she instead tries to console her by holding her tight because she sees Vi is upset. This moment is the start of Powder's traumatic decline, because although Powder seems to be okay enough to not break down, in actuality, she doesn't understand how to deal with this traumatic experience, so she clings to her sister. Powder and Vi are both then sheltered and protected by Vander, a friend of their parents. When we meet Powder again later, she's a bit older and more observant of her surroundings. It's clear that she's timid and somewhat insecure, and that's why she's eager to prove herself to her sister and her adopted brothers, Milo and Clagger. Being the youngest in this family dynamic, Powder looks up to her older sister. She wants to be just as useful, just as accepted, and just as strong as Vi is. However, occasionally, more often than not, whenever she tries to contribute to the group, her attempts often result in mistakes or slip-ups. Whenever these mistakes do happen, Vi isn't quick to blame her little sister. Usually it's Milo who's constantly teasing and name-calling Powder, at one point even calling her a Jinx.
Every time she comes, something goes wrong. She jinxes every job.
This further fuels her insecurity and fear of not being good enough. It's only her connection with Vi that keeps her grounded and suspends the thought of her feeling like a burden. But when she feels as if Vi thinks little of her capabilities, we see her have moments of sadness and even breakdowns. Powder is constantly seeking Vi's approval. One word from Vi could make or break Powder's day. Luckily for Powder's mental state, Vi is a very encouraging and protective older sister. She encourages Powder to keep on tinkering, even though her creations aren't always reliable.
Look, I've got these, and you've got those.
They never work.
They will.
This motivation from her sister gives Powder a sense of belonging. Because of Vi, Powder feels useful, she feels worthy, and she feels accepted. Vi is Powder's emotional anchor. Vi has always been there to protect her, both emotionally and physically. Whenever Powder feels like she doesn't belong or feels weak and incapable, Vi is always the one to reassure her, relaying the message that she's good enough.
Powder, look at me!
What did I tell you?
That I'm ready.
That's right.
When Powder realizes she still has a Hex gemstone from a robbery gone wrong, her first instinct is to tell her sister. It only makes sense that she would, knowing that Vi's opinion outweighs everyone else's. In this moment, Powder wasn't thinking about the long-term consequences of keeping this stone. Instead, she chose to act upon her desire for validation and to prove her usefulness. So by now, it's clear what Powder's true priorities are. In hopes that Vi would be impressed, Powder goes to tell her what she found, but she pauses when she overhears Milo complaining to Vi about her screw-ups.
She just lost it.
She made a mistake.
Name one time she hasn't.
She's young.
Don't bullshit me. We're twice the person at half her age.
You know what, Milo? You're right. There's a bunch of things Powder just can't do.
You don't have to tell me twice.
This resurfaces the idea of her feeling like a burden and not being good enough. She immediately decides to close herself off in her room, but this moment of embarrassment and shame is shortly lived because Vi comes to reassure her that she is not the only one who makes mistakes and that we all have embarrassing moments, making her feel encouraged and loved.
Milo tripped over his own paint bucket and nearly fell off trying to draw a giant middle finger. His ass made that splotch.
Up to this point, Milo's criticism of Powder's capabilities haven't caused her to shut down to the point where she'd keep herself isolated in her room. It's only when she thinks Vi agrees with Milo that she does this, further proving how much she values Vi's opinion. Powder didn't exactly have the best upbringing either. Growing up in the Undercity, Powder was exposed to the cruelty of the world at a very young age. In an environment where survival usually involves violence, people and children can quickly become desensitized to it. The constant pressure of conflict and the need to defend yourself can blur the lines of what is too far for someone as highly impressionable as young Powder. Seeing what goes on around Zahn, Powder is subconsciously picking up the drastic measures that might be necessary to protect someone she loves or to achieve one's goals. The people of Zahn are often dehumanized and oppressed by Piltover. Piltover being the more enhanced and innovative city of the two, its government looks down upon Zahn as they see it as a chaotic waste dump. This could contribute to Powder's boiling resentment and desire to prove her and Zahn's worth, leading her to strike back at her oppressors and influencing her later actions. Powder was never truly able to be a kid or to feel free. In a place where it's survival above all else, this can create a state of chronic stress for any child, which can lead to heightened anxiety, difficulty relegating emotions, and long-term impacts on brain development. Living in a place of scarcity where resources are limited and survival is a constant struggle can inherently lower a person's self-worth. Powder would likely internalize the idea that she or her community were less than those in a luxurious Piltover, simply due to their living conditions. For a child like Powder who wasn't a natural fighter like her sister Vi, this environment would constantly highlight her physical weaknesses and her inability to protect herself or others through traditional means. This can lead to a sense of vulnerability and helplessness, further chipping away at her self-confidence.
I'm not a fighter.
You don't have to be.
Due to the insecurity fostered by her environment and Milo's taunts, Powder developed a strong need for validation, especially from Vi. Her self-esteem became heavily tied to Vi's approval and her ability to prove her usefulness to the group. This meant her sense of self was not internally derived, but rather externally dependent, making it fragile and susceptible to perceived failures or rejections. While Powder was incredibly inventive, her inventions weren't always useful in fights or heists like Vi's or Milo's or even Clagger's skills were. This would make her feel less valuable, further eroding her confidence when she couldn't contribute in the ways she felt were most needed for their survival. Throughout Powder's life, Vi has constantly reminded her that she's not useless and that when things go wrong, it's not her fault.
It's all right, Powder. At least you're okay.
Despite Milo and sometimes Clagger treating Powder like a liability, Vi has always encouraged Powder to play to her strengths, like her creativity and intelligence, rather than trying to be rough and tough like the rest of the group. Vi's constant reassurance was the remedy that kept Powder's fragile mental state from completely unraveling in a world that offered little external validation. It was Vi's consistent message that Powder was loved, valued, and belonged that directly addressed and mitigated her deep-seated insecurities. Vi's unwavering love, faith, and acceptance provided the bedrock of security and self-worth that Powder desperately needed. When Vander is captured by Silco and his goons, Vi comes to tell the group the details of what happened. She is clearly in distress as it's hard for her to even control her breathing.
They took Vander.
Who took Vander?
I don't know, but I need to help him.
Powder once again picks up on Vi's emotions and acts accordingly. While Vi is conversing with Milo and Clagger about a plan to get Vander back, Powder is getting herself ready by gathering her best gadgets to save Vander along with the rest of the group. At this moment, it's likely that Powder was thinking she needed to be useful and prove herself, seeing this as her chance to finally contribute effectively and show everyone, especially Vi, that she's capable and not a burden. She desperately wanted to shed the image of being the little sister who always messed things up, but when Vi tells her she isn't ready, her entire soul is crushed.
You're not coming.
I'm not afraid.
It's too dangerous.
But families stick together, you said it yourself.
I know what I said.
I want to fight. I can help.
You're not ready.
The only person that has consistently told her she was good enough and fully accepted who she was turned her world upside down. Although Vi was not doing this to break her heart, but in fact to protect her, Powder took this as Vi believing she's useless and incapable to contribute to the rescue. In pure agony, Powder rips apart one of her inventions and throws it across the room, but she can't bring herself to fully destroy it because destroying it would be like destroying a part of her own being. Her creations represent all the good parts of herself that she desperately wants to be acknowledged. In the process of giving up and accepting her reality, an idea comes to her that gives her the motivation to follow Vi in the group, convinced that she can make a difference.
I can help them.
In her mind, this decision is justified because she believes with the Hex gemstones combined with her inventions, she could help rescue Vander and finally prove her worth. Her decision-making is clearly clouded by her emotional state because she doesn't even think of the potential danger that these Hex gemstones could cause, and she's had no preparation with this kind of technology up to this point. When seeing Vi struggling to hold off one of Silco's goons on Shimmer, Powder, in an act of desperation to help, prepares her device, setting it off to explode. She doesn't realize the rest of the group is actually almost done rescuing Vander. To her, this is her moment. This is her ultimate test. She has always had a strong belief in her inventions, no matter the failures or the mistakes. In her mind, this device, this time, is the key to saving Vander. The rest of the group has successfully found a way to free Vander, but unbeknownst to them, a bomb is headed their way. The device Powder set off causes an explosion, killing Milo and Clagger. But Powder doesn't notice. She thinks she just saved the day. As Powder falls from being knocked back by the explosion, she's smiling not because she just killed her adopted brothers, but because she believes she succeeded in helping them escape. Although this is a misguided triumph, at this moment this is likely the happiest Powder has been for a very long time. Out of pure joy, Powder is exhilarated to tell Vi that her monkey bomb finally worked. This is the moment she's been working so hard for. To her, she just helped rescue Vander and Vi from Silco's goons. All that's left is for Vi to tell her she's proud of her. But this moment of happiness is cut short as she begins to realize what actually happened. Her entire delusion collapses, and all of her insecurities resurface. This time, Vi doesn't console her. In an act of rage, Vi hits her little sister because she just lost most of her core family. But instead of Powder voicing she's sorry, she begins to ask Vi,
Why did you leave me?
this isn't Powder blaming Vi for the events that just took place. It's likely coming from a place of self-loathing. To her, if Vi hadn't left her behind, she wouldn't have had a mental breakdown, nor would she have had the idea to follow the group. Therefore, things wouldn't have turned out the way they did if Vi had allowed her to go from the very beginning. Vi responds to Powder's question in a very traumatic tone, telling her that she left her because she's a Jinx and that Milo is right.
Why did you leave me?
Because you're a Jinx! Do you hear me? Milo was right!
This can be interpreted as Vi showing her true self, meaning she's always believed Powder was a Jinx, but just didn't want to be as direct as Milo was. However, considering Vi is going through an overwhelming amount of grief, losing almost her entire family in an instant, this response is likely a projection of her grief and a desperate attempt to find any reason for why this shocking event just happened. Her response is a testament to the devastating power of trauma, for it can make the most loving and caring people say and do things they don't truly mean. Realizing what she's done, Vi gets up and leaves Powder. Reeling from overwhelming grief, Vi needed some time to process everything that happened. As Vi walks away, Powder is still pleading for her sister to come back, at one point saying,
Please, Violet, I need you, please.
Her entire life, Vi has always been there for her, protecting her, loving her, and making sure she felt valued. Her saying, Vi, I need you please, is not just a plea for Vi's physical presence, but for the emotional security and connection that Vi represents. Vi is her world, her only remaining anchor in this moment of chaos. Powder's cry is a primal scream for reassurance, forgiveness, and the return of her sister's love and protection, which she feels she has irreversibly lost. Despite Vi not going too far away and staying relatively close, Powder feels as if Vi just abandoned her. This completely shatters Powder's already fragile sense of self-worth and belonging. As Powder's fear of abandonment festers and all of her insecurities run through her mind, Silco, the man who orchestrated the capture of Vander, approaches Powder looking to find her sister. Vi quickly notices Silco and tries to protect her sister, but is stopped by an enforcer. Not realizing Silco's true intentions, Powder jumps into his arms and states that Vi is not her sister anymore.
She is not my sister anymore.
Powder is at her absolute lowest and most vulnerable point in her life. By rejecting Vi as her sister, Powder was rejecting her pain. Silco recognizes Powder's immense feelings of betrayal, and in an act of calculated empathy, he comforts her in a very manipulative way. This was the moment Powder's world fully crumbled, and she began to forge a new one. Silco saw himself in Powder's pain and her feelings of being forsaken, and that led him to take her in and nurture her into becoming Jinx. Powder lost everything she valued: her sister, her adopted brothers and father, her parents, her sense of self-worth, and her hope of becoming anything but a Jinx. Although Powder lost her emotional anchor, she was able to gain a new one. Living under Silco's wing, Powder was taught that her destructive tendencies and perceived weaknesses were actually strengths. He encouraged her to embrace the name Jinx, transforming her trauma into a twisted form of empowerment.
You need to let Powder die, so the fear of pain will no longer control you.
Silco, while loving Jinx in his own way, manipulates her by consistently reinforcing the idea that Vi betrayed her and that only he truly understands and accepts her. Fostering a new codependent relationship with Silco, Jinx often commits extreme acts to seek his approval and demonstrate her loyalty. However, Jinx is still deeply insecure. Fearing being seen as weak, emotional, and a failure, she constantly strives to be fierce, powerful, and the Jinx Silco believes her to be.
Now, he thinks I'm weak. I'm not weak.
By channeling her pain and anger into destructive behaviors, Jinx believes that this makes her strong, not understanding that the core of her internal struggle remains the same. She desperately wants to prove her worth and secure a place where she feels accepted and valued, no matter how destructive the path to achieve it becomes.
And I'm gonna show him. Oh, I'm gonna show him. Y'all see.
Was Powder always destined to be a Jinx? If she had gotten the help she needed at an early age, would that have been enough to set her on a much healthier path? If she had grown up in an environment that allowed her skills to prosper, would she have had more faith in herself? And if Vi had never left her behind to rescue Vander, would she have received help to properly use the monkey bomb? Or would she have found another solution, preventing her descent into Jinx? We see how abandonment, trauma, and a desperate yearning for acceptance slowly chipped away at who she was, leaving behind a fractured identity. Jinx is a tragic reflection of what happens when the deepest wounds are left to fester, transforming a desire to help into a need to destroy. Her story forces us to confront the shadows within ourselves, the hurts we carry, the expectations that weigh us down, and the dangerous past we might wonder if we don't heal. It's a call to understand that the monsters we create often begin as the most vulnerable parts of ourselves. Her story highlights the fine line between forging your own path and succumbing to destructive influences when you feel lost. It makes us ask, when does the quest for self-discovery turn into self-destruction? And are we truly free if we abandon everything we once were? If you made it this far, consider subscribing and leaving a like if you enjoyed this video, and with all that being said, I hope to see you next time.